GameObjects and prefabs, in Unity, and actors and blueprints in Unreal. In Unreal, instead of GameObjects, you have actors. Actors are basically classes of objects that you can put in your level and play with them. The difference is that unlike Unity, actors in Unreal can have their own functionality. So, for example, this rocket in our game is an actor which has its own functionality regardless of the components attached to it. In Unity, all of the functionality is added inside the components. In Unreal, you still have the components, but you can have functionality in the object itself. So, for example, in this blueprint, in the unactivate event, I'm doing something in the actor itself, which has nothing to do with the components attached to it, and it works regardless of them unless it uses the components. Now, components still can be attached to different actors, but this is a very big difference. And another difference is that in Unity, a prefab is just a template of a game object with its components and their values. But in Unreal, a blueprint is actually a class very similar to a C++ class that you create as a component or as an actor or any other class that you can create basically using blueprints. If you're a programmer, you should appreciate that any class which is the child of Unreal's own UObject class can be coded using blueprints. And as a result, blueprints not only can contain basically data and templates, they also can additional code and can inherit from each other. So for example, this rocket blueprint is inheriting from another class, which is made actually in C++. And as a result, the API is also shared between blueprints and C++. So it's not like Bolt that it's just a component. It's actually blueprints and C++ classes are basically share the space in your game. And yeah, that's one of the main important things that's different between Unity and Unreal, which you should learn. And another important thing is that in Unity, when you reference other actors, basically other game objects, you can reference another object's rigid body or transform or other components. But in Unreal, those aren't available in your detail panel, which is similar to Inspector. So for example, if I come to this basically blueprint and try to add a variable to it, which is similar to defining a public variable as a name it other reference. If I make it an actor, basically it can be referencing another actor in the vault. But if I, for example, need the mesh of that actor, which in Unreal, like you don't have a mesh render, you have a static mesh component, you cannot reference it directly. Like I can basically define a variable of that type. Like I can define a variable of type static mesh component, but it is not possible in the editor to reference it, basically. So I define these variables, and but after I compile this, and let's say I put an instance of this to my level here. Now if I want to assign stuff to it, let's search for ref. Oops, I guess the variables aren't visible. So yeah, none of them were visible. So after I make this visible, let's add another. I don't know why it doesn't exist. Oh, it exists, but it just says this top here. So yeah, now these are visible. Now, since this is still selected, the other reference, and I want to assign stuff to it, I can. But this one, the list is empty. And even if something has a mesh, if I try to drag them to this, it will not work. That's simply a limitation or design feature or whatever you want to call it of Unreal Engine. That's not something that you can basically change. This is an upcoming game, but it's not with this video. So if you want to basically have the mesh reference either in C++ or in Blueprints, what you have to do is that you should simply get the actor, and then similar to get component in Unity, Unreal has find component by class. In C++, in Blueprint, it's called get component by class. And then you say, okay, I want the static mesh component of this actor, and then use it to set its material or do whatever you want. So yeah, you cannot basically directly set that reference in the editor, so you can technically have it. So for example, the variable I have, technically I can use it here. So this should apply force. So yeah, a variable of type mesh technically can be used, but the thing is that like it's not settable inside the editor. You can say it in C++ or in code. Here I can define a variable and set its value using the same approach that I should, but it's not settable in the editor like it was in Unity, which is at first a surprising thing,